Right, so I'm just thinking of dealing with this long-standing hole in the dash where there used to be a tachograph in the van. It was a minibus, but all that's left now is the radio there. I've taken the front off of, and I've just had it sort of balanced in there for a while. I made a wooden cover for this area, which was open, which has got just a couple of switches in. That one's for the rear light, and that's actually for the radio. So I'm thinking I'm just going to take a bit of ply. I've just cut that to the right size, and I'm just going to have to chamfer the corners off. I've just done one at the bottom there, so it fits the shape. And then I think I was going to use ply rather than solid, because it's going to be very, very thin, the wood that's left around the outside when I've cut the hole for the radio in, so it wouldn't be that strong in a solid piece, I don't think. So ply might give it a bit more, but I'm going to veneer it with something. I've got some rosewood, I think, something like that when it's done. So it won't match the top one, unfortunately, because that's yew, but I might even re-veneer the top one. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. Right, well, I shaped the piece that was going to make up the fascia. It's going to be veneered later, and add an off-cut of ply, which is obviously why it's not square there. And notice there was a convenient little metal bracket in the back there with a hole in, which is around about the right height. So I've made this to fit so that will slot in, the back of that will slot into that little bit in the back there. I can't put it in one hand, I don't think, but it will fit quite tight. Maybe I can. There we go. Yeah, that's it'll locate in there like that. So it makes it pretty solid. And the stereo fits in very snugly in there at the moment. Because the front surface is curved though now, it's got a curve in it here, when the little plastic fascia clips on, it won't sit tight. But what I'm going to do is just chop it into the veneer along the top and the bottom edges there, chop it in and leave it touching at the edges but recessed in there, so it should look flat. I'm not sure how thick the veneer is, it's probably only a mil, but that should do. So that should work, I think. I'll carry on. Right, so I've sort of fitted the plywood blank. I've had to cut out some little notches here for where the fascia goes over the stereo when it fits in. And I've got a bit of rosewood veneer here that I'm just going to glue over that. I have to leave it till tomorrow then. And I have to cut out the hole once that's gone off. Going to put a bit of paper over the surface and glue it down, cramp it down. Oh, and where I put the screws in there, I've filled over those, so those are nice and smooth now. Right, well that should be gluing overnight. Looks like there's plenty of glue, or enough glue oozing out. Looks like there's a good seal all the way around the veneer there. Found something, because it's a curved surface, I managed to find some sort of plastic. This sort of stuff's quite flexible, and some flexible bits of old pine there to bend around it as well, and plenty of cramps. So I'm hoping that will glue nicely. I'll check it out tomorrow. Right, so following day, I've just cut the from inside, cut the veneer away through from inside while it's still cramped, so it should be held, because it's not had the full 24 hours it's supposed to have for the glue. It's only probably had about 14 or so, something like that, but it should be okay to hold a veneer, I would have thought. So I'm probably going to take the cramps off, I think, in a minute, and we'll see how it looks. Right, well that seems to have stuck pretty well, really. It looks pretty good. I've just got to cut out the areas where the little teeth from the surround for the radio go in, so I've got to cut those back a little bit. And in fact, I'm going to chamfer all of this edge back a bit, so that when the radio is pushed in and out, it's not going to snag on this veneer and rip it off later. So but there's plenty of cover there. This is the little bit that goes on the surround piece, so that will overlap a good sort of 3 or 4 mil. So if I take 1 or 2 mil off the edge on a chamfer, that should make it nice and secure. Right, so I've just chopped in the little spots here where the little tongues go in. That all fits in nicely. Chamfered it slightly so the radio actually goes in and out without scraping quite easily. And just thinking about the colour. Just giving it a little bit of a wet down. There we are. With that's just a bit of meths on a cloth, because I'm going to use a shellac finish over, so meths will be compatible with that. I haven't put any water on it, and it looks all right to me. I quite like that rosewood colour. Plain, simple. It will fade with time, especially since it's in the front of a van. It's going to get sunlight, but it'll look quite nice when it's faded. So I think I'm just going to go straight on with that, with a bit of I can't remember what polish we've got. It's a shellac base. It might be some pale outside polish or something, I think it's called. Anyway, I shall try that. Right, so I'm just going to polish this now. I've smoothed it off and cut in where the notches go there. This is an old polishing rubber, I believe the whole thing is called. The bit inside is fad, I think it's called. It's been 30 years since I did any polishing for a living, so I've forgotten. But it takes a bit of practice to keep the shape of it, but it's meant to be a sort of a heel shape, like so, folded over, so you have a point that you can get into corners with on there, and then you just fold the cotton over the surface. To charge it, you just pour the polish straight in to the fad inside, which I've got a little bit of this special pale polish, that's what it was, I couldn't remember the name, and we just pour a little bit onto the surface of the fad there, let it soak in. This is probably about 4 or 5 years old. It's just kept in a jar so it doesn't go hard, and I always charge it with methylated spirits, the solvent, when I'm finished with it. So you see, as you tighten it there, the polish comes to the surface. We don't want too much of it in one place. Twist that round and it should hold that shape with the thumb in there, so you keep that point on it. So I haven't put any stain on this, it is just the natural colour. I'm just going to start by just getting a small amount on the surface. Normally if you had a stain on there, you'd have to flash across it quick so that the stain doesn't get streaked, particularly if it was a spirit based stain. But because it's just clean wood, there's no need. And it shows up that there's a little light spot there, which I think was where a knot was missing, so I'll colour that out in a little while. But now it's got a little bit of polish on it to hold it, a little bit of colour on that, and it won't show later. So once you've got a little bit on the surface, you can build it up, starting off going around in circles. Some people figure of eights, all sorts. You can feel it start to drag once you've got enough on or too much on. Once it starts to drag, generally finish off with a couple of straight runs like so. This is where you can, there's no way of explaining it really, other than you have to get a feel for it. So it's one of those things you have to learn, you can't really be taught. So you just keep going until it starts to dry out a little bit on you, and it'll start becoming a bit thick, and you'll feel it dragging on the surface of the rubber. And just finish off straight lines like so. And usually you'll get a few little runs on the edge. Doesn't matter on this because it's not going to be seen, but as usual technique is just to finish off around the edge like that to remove any runs. Then let it dry for a little bit and start again. So I haven't had to recharge the rubber yet, it's still coming out. You're getting a, I don't know, so many microns thick, probably, little surface on it each time. Not very much is going on, but the circular motion and a bit of pressure on it is pushing it into the open pores of the grain. So eventually it will be a full grain finish if I keep going long enough. I don't really need to on this because it's just the dash of a car, or a van in this case. Right, I'm going to let that just dry off a little bit. It's a little bit more glossy here than it is that side. There's a little bit more on this side than there, but that will all come out later as I add more and more. Right, I'll recharge that and put it back in its jar. Just a little, it's only a few drops really go on and it soaks in. Actually, you can see a little bit of colour from the wood there has got rubbed onto the cotton. Reshape it, put it back in the jar. keep for a while. Right, that'll do for now. Right, well, I'll let that go off for a little while, hour and a half, 2 hours or so, and I've just given it a cut back with a 320 grit paper. And I was thinking of giving it another coat over, but to be honest, it's quite good. I was going to wax finish it, so it might be good enough to wax now. Need to be cut with wire wool if I'm going to do that, but 2 binds at the minute. Let's just see what it happens. Right, so I did give that a second coat in the end of shellac, of the special pale polish, and it's not too bad now. I think pretty well, not quite 100% full, but it's not bad. So I'm just going to wax it using this, well, I cut it with wire wool. This is the 4/0 wire wool stuff, it's very soft. That just mats the surface off, and then I'm just going to finish it off with this wax, which is Harrell's, just a white wax. I'm not sure what else they call it. I think it's just called Harrell's white wax. And just apply that with the fingers along the grain, rub it in a bit. This just gives it less of a sort of a sharp shine. It'll be more of a sort of satin finish. And if you get any little marks on it, when it's, because it's just going to be in the dashboard of a van, it's likely to get the odd grubby fingerprint and mark on it. It just buffs out with a rag. Once I leave that really just a minute or so, I'll buff it off with a cloth. I feel it starting to drag a bit there on the surface, and that will shine it up. Right, that's had a minute or so to harden a bit, and I'm just going to buff it off, or give it a slight shine with a bit of rag. No, it's not too bad. That's the unbuffed side, and that's the buffed side. Right, that's the finished item installed. Something of a contrast between the rosewood and the yew, so perhaps I'll veneer the yew piece with the rosewood over the top of that in the future, but for now I'm going to leave it like that. So you can see the sort of relatively nice satin shine on it there. That's not too bad.